LSU obviously clobbered Texas A&M. LSU head coach Ed Orgeron was talking about that win and was asked Monday whether his team has already clinched a playoff spot. And it's early to have that conversation, but this is what Coach had to say about it.
Ed, are you confident that no matter what happens Saturday, that you are in the playoff?
No, I ain't thinking about it. I'm not buying into that at all. We got to win. I don't know if we got to win to get in the playoffs or not. I'm not even talking about that. Our goal is to beat Georgia and win the SEC, and then let's see what happens. So that's not coming into play. We're not talking about that, and we're not even considering it right now.
Well, obviously, they're not considering it, but we get to consider it. That's the fun of sports talk. So the question now becomes who's number one, because Ohio State and LSU continue to go back and forth in that category. So I'll ask you, Greg, what does LSU need to do to supplant Ohio State, get back to number one in the rankings?
They have to win dominantly this weekend, but not just on one side of the ball. We know their offense is going to show up and would expect them to play well. They're one of the best in all of college football. But listening to the committee chair last Tuesday, Rob Mullins, he discussed how the difference right now between Ohio State and LSU is on the defensive side of the football. Well, check one box, because that LSU defense last week against Texas A&M was tremendous. It was probably their best defensive performance of the entire season. You fast forward now to a conference championship game. When you're looking at both resumes, both Ohio State and LSU, it's comparable. But if you wanted to say that Ohio State had a little bit more of a complete team because of how dominant they've been on defense, I would listen to you. But if LSU goes out, dominates Georgia, shuts them down completely with their defense working against Jake Fromm and that offense, that could be possibly the final push necessary to move LSU into the number one spot.
Well, and it could be set up for just that, Greg, because the one thing that has created some defensive issues for LSU is a dynamic athletic quarterback, a guy that can run around, that they have to account for in the run game. You know, they gave up 600 yards on defense to Ole Miss, 400 yards on the ground. A lot of that was because of the quarterback. They don't have that issue versus Georgia. I think that Dave Aranda and this LSU defense have an offense that they're going to be facing where they know the quarterback's going to be in the same spot on every single snap, and having to account for him in the run game is not going to exist. How healthy is DeAndre Swift? Everything is set up for LSU to have an outstanding defensive effort here and prove that they belong to be the number one team because they are good enough on defense.
I think what's surprising to me, though.
The thing, too, also about LSU, Fitzy, I cut you off again. I'm sorry, brother. When I think about this LSU defense, it's not been that they haven't showcased talent and respectability. It's the problem they haven't showcased 60-minute efforts.
Yes.
They played, for instance, against Alabama, 13 points in the first half, second half, a completely different animal. Against Ole Miss, 7 points in the first half, second half, completely different animal. And then finally against Arkansas, 6 points in the first half, and they kind of allowed them to get back into the game late in the game, even though it was a complete blowout. They scored 2 touchdowns late. So we hadn't seen a 60-minute effort from LSU's defense until past Saturday. If they give us another 60-minute effort on the defensive side this week, then I could feel a lot better about moving them into one.
I think, Greg, what doesn't make a lot of sense about that, though, is when you look at the talent that they have, the talent is astronomical for LSU on the defensive side of the ball. So when you have issues like this with effort, how do you fix it, Greg?
I don't think it's so much effort, Fitz. It's about making sure the defensive players play well together. Because if you look at the individual talent that LSU has in the secondary, at corner in particular, they're as good as anybody. If you look at the speed they have at safety, those guys, Grant Delpit most notably, who hasn't had a great year because he's been hindered a little bit by an ankle injury. He should be at least close to full strength by this point. They have great individual pieces, but those 11 pieces haven't always worked together in a cohesive way. Sometimes the linebackers will play out of position to account for holes along the defensive line, and the safeties won't fill appropriately based on how the linebackers play. So all 11 pieces need to be working in unison. They haven't done that consistently throughout the year.
Yeah, this doesn't have to do with athleticism, and Greg and I saw them 2 weeks ago. This has more to do with assignment football, execution, and fits. Yeah. And I would add one thing in relationship to their personnel. I don't know if they have those true glass eaters in their front four that we've all become so accustomed to seeing LSU have that can just be disruptive forces on every single snap. They've got quality personnel there. I just don't know if it's what it's been in years past, or let's just say what Clemson's been playing with the last 3 to 4 years.
Well, and to that point, gentlemen, even if they can get through the SEC championship game, when you look at the quarterbacks they may have to face, Justin Fields at some point, the communication in the back end is going to be interesting to see how they actually manage that.
What's up? Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. Don't forget to download the ESPN app, and if you want more premium content, which you do, make sure that you subscribe to ESPN Plus. See you soon.